Dante, A Life by Benedict Flynn. On a morning heavy with sea mist, early in the autumn of 1321, a small party of men might have been observed, picking their way carefully along the edge of the sea marsh of Comacchio. They moved slowly across the landscape, past shallow lagoons filled with masses of black weed. They pause from time to time. One of their number is so feeble he is barely able to continue. Ravenna, their destination, is only a day or so distant, but the concern on the faces of this man's companions questions whether he'll live that long. It is a deadly season to travel this coastal route from Venice, not for fear of bandits and violent attack. A more insidious, unseen killer comes with September and the first autumn rains. The poisonous miasma of malaria. The old man to whom they show such concern would be of middle height, if years passed in scholarship had not given him a back arched like the span of a bridge. When he regains sufficient strength to continue, his gait is gentle and grave, more used to cloisters and courtly halls than the tussocks of seagrass beneath his feet. His face is long, his nose proud and aquiline, the jaw determined, with a thoughtful, protruding lower lip. Sickness gives him a drawn appearance, and there is sadness etched about his mouth in deep lines. His eyes are large and melancholy, in a dark complexion. His hair and beard thick, black and curly, much as if, so the gossips of Ravenna would have it, he came and went to hell as he pleased, bringing news of its inhabitants, and his hair and beard had been crisped by the heat and smoke there. The journey is nearly over, but it does not have the looked-for ending. The party's peacemaking embassy to the most serene republic has been unsuccessful. Dante Alighieri, around whom the companions hover anxiously, played a small role. He did not speak on Ravenna's behalf. Only his presence was required, sufficient alone to give the venture gravitas. Perhaps he never intended to. They will say he did not speak because the Venetians so feared his reputation for eloquence and oratory, they would not let him. More than that, the Republic would not let him return in one of their ships. The fear was Dante might subvert their admiral, so his embassy was forced to take the dangerous coastal route from Venice. The irony of that well-invented story would not be lost on Dante. To die silent because of a reputation for eloquence has an echo of the eternity of anguish the poet has the wretched sinners of his Inferno suffer. The journey has another unlooked-for ending. In 20 years of banishment, Dante has not given up his hope of regaining Florence, though in these last bitter years of exile, Ravenna and his patron, Guido Novello da Polenta, have treated him well. An unwelcome realization creeps over Dante as the fever bites. The possibility that the Cammin de Nostra Vita, the road of life he travels, will not end in the city of his birth. His most fervent wish, to be crowned with the poet's laurel wreath at the black and white baptistry before his fellow Florentines, is slipping away. To die loved and revered as one of the greatest poets the world had known or would know in Ravenna is to him the greatest cruelty of his exile. They travel slowly, but the lagoons are far behind them by the time the mist has fled before the morning sun, and the white seabirds of the marshes, disturbed by the traveller's passage, settle to their feeding. Before long, the little embassy is swallowed by the mysterious gloom and twilight groves of the vast and ancient Pineta forest that stretches to the north and south of Ravenna. With the dying day, the Porta Serrata of Ravenna is close enough for them to send a runner on ahead to prepare for his arrival. There is little they can do. By the time Dante is brought to bed in Ravenna, he's shaking so much with fever he cannot stand. He's fed salty, bitter tinctures to ease the recurring bouts. He is made to sip infusions from the larch tree harvested in the Pineta, and from the shrub box grown by the monks. In between, he's bled from a vein in the foot to restore the natural balance of his humors, the 4 bodily fluids that govern health and sickness. But the malaria does not release its grip. Each successive attack weakens him further. Delirium takes hold. Dante's mind begins to wander, taking him to Florence, as it had so often in his dreams, only this time, for the last time. An exile is a man deprived twice. Physically, he's banished from his own country. The place he has made for himself in the world is taken from him. Equally, he's deprived of his time, the time which passes in the place he's left behind. In that country, the young do not grow up, the old do not die. It becomes a place frozen in memory at that moment when the exile sees it last. The Florence captured in Dante's memory. La gran villa sovra il bel fiume d'Arno, the great city on Arno's fair river, was one of the most prosperous in Europe. Bottled up by its fortified city walls, Florence was a strange mixture of commercialism and feudalism. Narrow streets and thatched houses were overhung by a forest of towers, reminders in stone of the faction fighting which made it one of Europe's most turbulent cities as well. Dante's memories of a childhood in San Martino al Vescovo, the quarter in which the Alighieri family lived, are peopled by armed men rushing towards a cry of "A cor uomo" as the tension of a vendetta blossoms into conflict. There are barricades in the streets, crossbows aimed from the towers, houses set ablaze. Among those memories are the first images of Beatrice Portinari, beautiful, angelic Beatrice, whom Dante first met at the age of 9, and who would become the inspiration for his verse and his spiritual guide through the heavens of the Divine Comedy. As Dante slips away in Ravenna, one aspect of his exile is coming to a happy end at least. The miseries of the present life exchanged for the felicity of an eternity with Beatrice. Delirium plays strange tricks on a man. The snatch of a tune from beneath the window of his room brings the phantom of Casella out of the dead world of Dante's youth. Dante reaches out, but he cannot embrace the Casella conjured by his fevered brain. Yet his friend's tune still sounds in his memory as sweetly as when he heard it first. As his strength fails him, there are other bitter memories that come to Dante's muttering lips. The unforgiven and unresolved are things intrinsic to the mentality of the exile. All you hold dear will be left behind. Dante's ancestor, Cacciaguida, a 12th century crusader, tells him in Paradiso, prophesying Dante's exile. You will learn how salt and bitter other men's bread is, how hard the climb upstairs never your own. How the thought of Cante de Gabriella, the man who condemned him to banishment, burns. Even on his deathbed, Dante's lips twitch with the injustice of it, that he, the undeserving exile, should wander the world like disconsolate justice, banished from Paradiso, forever seeking a place of refuge. The sadness of the moment never left him in his progress, as part pilgrim, part beggar, headed anywhere the Italian language is spoken. Few of those Florentines banished with him in the early years gather round his deathbed now. There was another kind of exile in Dante's life, a self-imposed inner exile who set himself apart from his fellows. They were the hardest burden to bear, a scheming, senseless company, profane, insane ingrates. How they turned against him when he left their plottings to make his own progress and work out his own destiny as a poet. As the dawn of the Feast of the Exaltation of the Holy Cross rises, Dante's breathing turns quick and shallow. His heartbeat only flutters now, exhausted from the fever. There is enough strength in him to receive the sacraments. He reconciles himself with contrition to his God, for everything that being but a man he had done against his pleasure. Then, without returning to lucidity, fortified by the rites of the Holy Mother Church, Dante renders up his soul to leave the miseries of this present life behind, to the grief of those present.